All right. Hey, welcome to the Steve and Captain Evil podcast. Our new Captain Evil today is Eddie.
What's up? Is this the first time she's being replaced?
You're literally the first one to replace her, dude.
Oh, wow.
But on a serious note, guys, real quick, Renae is not here. She is dealing with some family issues, as you guys know. And she is in Houston, Texas at the moment at MD Anderson. So I don't have an update for you on Daddy Raymond. The only thing that I will ask is that you continue to keep us and him in your thoughts and prayers. So I'm excited about having Eddie on the podcast. And Eddie, like, I don't know if you've seen our podcast, but it is very husband-wife oriented.
Yeah,
It's
that's why I usually tune out.
Yeah, that's why you have no business watching. But we like to keep it honest and real and very family and,
Cool.
and husband and wife. But I am a comedian, and there are moments that we kind of dive into the world of comedy. Now, Rick, our producer, is what you would call a comedy aficionado.
Okay.
Or a comedy nerd, if you will. Yes. So anytime we talk stand-up, he loses his shit. He loves it. So I thought that we could kind of get into, first of all, how many years you've been in comedy, what you do in comedy, and where you are now.
So I started working for Russell Peters, who's a pretty popular comedian. I was with him for 15 years.
But wouldn't you say, to interrupt on that, but Russell to me is like an anomaly. I remember, we worked together in Sacramento, and his fame is so weird because I remember walking through the mall.
Right.
80% of the people in the mall just walk by him, no clue. But the 20% would lose their shit. Not like, oh my God, Russell Peters, like lose their shit.
Yeah, he says Chris Rock once told them he's the biggest comedian that no one's ever heard of.
Right.
Right. And international, though, is a whole different story. But yeah, it's like he's not mainstream, but he sells tickets. He could do some arenas.
Well, shoot, I remember going to visit you guys and watching Russell do the Staples Center. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it's a Microsoft, but
Microsoft,
7,000 people there. So
I mean, so how did that come about for you?
It's a crazy story, bro. I before I worked for Russell, I worked at a bank doing loans, consumer loan specialist. I planned on making it my career. I was really good at it. And my mom, she's unemployed, goes to the swap meet, sells her perfumes, colognes, whatever she gets her hands on. And one day she comes home with a box of facial products, and she asks me, hey, why don't you help me sell this stuff? It's like, what am I going to do? Go door to door? What do you expect? She's like, tell your friends, tell your coworkers. It's really good stuff. I don't know. I'm sure Renee's heard of it. Dermalogica. Really expensive, high-end, fucking wrinkle creams and all kinds of stuff.
And your mom, it fell off a truck?
Her friend that works at the warehouse. Yeah. Her friend that works at this warehouse gave her this box. Yes.
Found some.
So I started listing them on eBay.
Right.
Made a killing, dude. In less than 2 weeks, we sold everything. And I was like, hey, where'd you get this stuff from? Yeah, my friend, he works at the warehouse. I was like, keep buying, and we'll keep selling.
Right.
Long story short, the stuff that we were selling was stolen.
Like I said, fell off a truck.
And we got sentenced to 6 months jail time with a felony.
You and your mom?
Me and my mom. We got charged with receiving stolen goods.
I mean, there's some shit you can do with your mom, but go to jail together.
Yeah. So the amount of shit that my mom had in her house was valued at over $20,000. Oh, so because of that, the cops came to my job. They didn't handcuff me, but they're like, hey, you got to come with us. They put us in jail. Felony. We got sentenced to 6 months jail time. I lost my license, my notary, studying to be a financial advisor, all of it down the drain because of
Thanks,
this
Mom.
felony. Yeah. You know what? I try not to give her the blame, right? I was helping her out, but the eBay account was in my name. PayPal was in my name. I was considered the mastermind of the operation. And so I used to go to a lot of comedy clubs while I was working.
Living in Los Angeles.
Living in LA. I used to go to the Laugh Factory a lot. Benny Mena, who is the one that got me into this comedy world as far as introducing me to comics. I became really close with Felipe Esparza. he used to bank at my credit union, and I used to cash his checks so child support wouldn't take his money.
Jesus.
And then he introduced me to Russell, and that's how me and him hit it off. So me and my mom turned ourselves in November of 2008, and we were sentenced to do 6 months jail time. My mom did 2 days. I don't know if the jail was overpopulated or, the computer just randomly selected
and
her.
You?
3 months.
Oof.
LA County, Men's Central Jail, Twin Towers. I was back and forth.
Sleep, wake up, eat, sleep, wake up.
Yeah, but after 2 weeks of hell, that's a whole nother story. But after 2 weeks of dealing with General Pop and the politics and what said I claim and stuff like that, which I rode with the Paisas, and then they moved me into the trustee dorm, which they call the Holiday Inn of the jail.
Right.
And it was a piece of cake after that. But I mean, it still sucked. You have to use the restroom.
You're in jail.
Yeah, you have to use the restroom in front of
Your
people.
whole world is half the size of this podcast.
Yeah, it was horrible. But when I got out, Russell, who I had hung out with a couple times, invited me to hang out with him, and we hit it off. And I got out January of 2009. It's when the housing market crashed.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was going to do. Have a felony on my record. Imagine trying to find a job and with the money I was used to making. And in August of that year, Russell asked me if I wanted to work for him full time. So from January to August, I would hit the road with him a couple times. He'd have me house sit for him, and I would just do what I could.
I remember, when I think I met Russell in probably, if I were to guess, 04, 05, or 06.
Was it? Okay, yeah. So I
Because
was already.
He had just blown up.
Yeah.
And I was hosting, I was opening, not hosting. I was opening the Doghouse Comedy Jam.
Where's that, in LA?
And in San Francisco, which was
Okay.
20,000 people. Chappelle was on it. Jamie Foxx was on it. Mencia, Gabriel, Ralphie May. I mean, the lineups are stupid, right? David Allen Greer, David Tell. I mean, it was like 15 of us. I'm like second. Mm-hmm. There's like the shitty opener, and then there's like, hey, here's this guy that you might not know or might know. And then, well, what happened was that Russell and I had to share a green room.
Oh, really? Okay.
And nobody was talking to us. Like everybody was hanging out, doing their thing.
Yeah.
And me and Russell were kind of the, new to the scene.
Yeah, I don't think he was even living in LA yet.
He was not living in LA. Yeah. And I remember the like, everybody at that time was like, because he ended up with like a later spot. And people were talking like, who the fuck is this Russell Peters guy? Well, we're talking about the Bay Area here. Dude, he walks on stage and the crowd lost their shit. And I remember every comedian came out of their green rooms to walk on stage and to see this guy. Because they were like, why are the people losing their shit? And then Russell and I ended up hanging out the whole night. That's how me and Russell became friends. Was through that. And then I met you later on, of course.
He moved to LA around 06, 07. And I started with him at the end of, in the middle of 09.
But
so he was still fairly new to LA.
You got to be a part of arguably one of the biggest world tours of all time.
Definitely. We've done a lot of international dates, and I got to travel the world with this guy. And before working for him, the furthest east I had ever been was Las Vegas. Furthest north was Santa Barbara. I hadn't even been to San Francisco.
What does your passport look like?
Dude, I had to add pages because of him. Yeah, so he was a big blessing, man, in my life. And I recently parted ways with him to get into management, and now we're working together.
But does he change his material when he goes different places?
No.
Or once he works on an act, that's the act.
That's the act. I mean, he's known for his crowd work, so he does a lot of crowd work when he relates to the people in the place he's in. But everyone's just so caught up with the references because of the internet nowadays.
Here's what I've always said about Russell. Russell is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And his memory.
That's the one thing where I say I've never met anyone,
dude,
with a memory like his.
He, to this day, texted me on my wedding anniversary. Damn. To this day. Because he was going to DJ my wedding. And And he volunteered and came up to me and said, dude, I want to DJ your wedding. I'll fly myself out there. The whole thing. And then for whatever reason, he couldn't make it. So then Russell paid for my DJ.
Dope.
Because he was like, I'm sorry, I was going to be your DJ. I can't. But every year, I get a text message from him. Yeah. Happy wedding anniversary on that day. And I got married forever ago. And the fact that he still remembers.
Yeah, his memory is crazy.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite stories before we move on with you and what you got going on, when we did Sacramento together. Mm-hmm. Dude, and at that time, I was already headlining. I was already doing my own thing. I wasn't making a lot of money as a headliner.
How did that even come about, him inviting you? Or I barely even remember that weekend.
Man, I ran into Russell at the Comedy Store or something, and he goes, hey, I want you to, are you open? Mm-hmm. I want you to do Sacramento with me. And I was actually doing Sacramento like 4 months later as a headliner. And at that time, I was with, was I with Gersh? I might have been with Gersh. Mm-hmm. And then Gersh was like, well, actually, this is a good opportunity. Right. Because Russell fans aren't your fans. And you can perform in front of them and then invite them to your show. So I'm like, yeah, Russell, I'll do it. But when maybe it was Dylan Garcia with us. And I remember we go into the mall and Russell, God, he's so generous. He was like, everybody pick something out. And we're in Louis Vuitton. And I immediately walk outside. Right. And then Russell sees me walk out and he comes to me and he goes, Steve, I'm buying everybody a gift. Go get a gift. And I told Russell, I said, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I will not accept that gift. Third of all, I don't fucking want anything from Louis Vuitton. Like, I wear cowboy boots, right? I wear cowboy boots. But I remember, you probably don't even remember this. Dylan Garcia buys a pair of Louis Vuitton shoes that Russell bought him.
I remember him rocking them.
They're like $1,800. And then a few weeks later, he got rolled in LA and beat up.
No way.
For those shoes.
Oh my God.
But I remember going, that's exactly why I didn't buy any Louis Vuitton shit. I don't want to get beat up. But your love for comedy, where did that come from?
I still remember the first comedy special I ever heard, and it was an audio on an iPod. It must have been 95, 96. It was my cousin put some music into my iPod, and I'm just going through my iPod, and I hear a comedy special, and it was Fluffy. Gabriel Iglesias, the very first special I had ever heard, like listened from beginning to end, our set.
Loving it.
I got hooked on that special. I don't even think it's something that's not on YouTube or one that was active. Right. It was probably just a set he did that he used to sell on CDs.
Oh, he downloaded it onto
an iPod, and it was the one where he talks about Felipe and that set that kind of put him on the map too. Right. But I shared that with all my friends, and then I met Benny through a cousin who used to run Latino nights at the Laugh Factory. Did you ever do that date?
I used to.
Monday nights.
Well, I talk about it on the podcast. When I moved to LA, I was only allowed to do Monday at the Laugh Factory, Taco Tuesday at the Comedy Store, Refried Friday at the, so yeah, I would do when I first got there, that Monday was Mexican Monday at the Laugh Factory. It was a huge night. Yeah. And this guy, Chris Martinez, who knows where that guy is now, but he was running it at that time. Mm-hmm. He was the gatekeeper. So who was your cousin?
He was just a friend of Benny's. And
just hanging out.
Just hanging out. That would go to the Laugh Factory all the time. He invited me, and I got hooked. I would go every Mondays. That's the only place I knew I can, I knew Benny, and he'd get me in sometimes, or I didn't have to pay admission every time that I went, which I did sometimes, but that's how I got hooked.
Did doing stand-up ever cross your mind?
Never. No? Not even now. No way.
No?
There's no way.
What was the biggest show in India that you guys did?
India were maybe 7,000, but I mean, he did O2 Arena, which was 12, 13,000. He could do 12, 13,000 in Sydney. He could do a big place in South Africa,
Canada,
Singapore, Canada. Toronto. Yeah, I can name a few different countries where he can do, a huge theater or even arenas.
So just to give you an example, and I'm going to be close to the number, and it's somewhere in the ballpark. One of his most successful years doing stand-up was a $70 million year.
Yeah, if I remember on Forbes list, they have that list, and he was up there. I think it was 40, but
40.
I mean, yeah. Still,
but it was like,
think about it.
It was like Russell,
Seinfeld,
Kevin Hart, Gabriel Iglesias. Yeah. Like, it was insane the amount of numbers he was doing, but never the feeling of I could do that.
But no, never thought about that. Never. I don't think I ever will. And everything's gone full circle because I decided to try to get into management, and now I'm working for the guy who manages Fluffy.
And me, yeah.
And that was the first comedy special I've ever heard.
That's crazy. That is so crazy to think like. Well, but that was kind of because and that's another thing is that when you went to Russell's house, every celebrity that you could imagine would be there.
Yeah. And that's how me and Russell hit it off. We were into the same music, loved boxing, MMA.
But I mean, you'd go to his house and Jon Favreau would be there DJing. And
he DJ'd one of our New Year's parties.
So that had to be fun, right? Yeah. Where all the celebrities that you got to meet and hang out with and boxers and,
Yeah, hip hop artists. That was, for me, that was the big thing. And then we lived 2 houses down from Vince Scully. For me, that was the biggest thing.
That's awesome.
And I got to go say hi to him. And, that's one of the only times I've been starstruck.
Vince Scully?
Yeah, just because my earliest childhood memories were listening to him on the radio and watching him on TV because of my dad. So, yeah, I mean, it's been some of the perks with the job, right? But
well, it's funny because, Timmy, my road manager, he goes, dude, I live the same life you live without the bullshit.
Right?
He's like, I'm on the same planes. I'm staying at the same hotels.
Tim picked me up from the airport. We were talking about that a little bit.
So he was like, dude, I deal with none of the celebrity, none of the bullshit, and I still get to do all the same things you get to do. Yep. And you guys, and then Russell had a house in Vegas, so you guys stomped around Vegas for a while.
Vegas a lot. He moved a lot, but yeah, I got to enjoy all that for 15 years, so it was awesome.
So then moved on, joining this new management. Mm-hmm. Now you're touring with one of the biggest comedians in the world also, which is Gabriel Iglesias. Yeah,
but I'm just wherever help is needed is pretty much what I'm doing right now.
What are the things that you could say that all comedians have in common? And then let's talk about like the differences. Are there patterns that you go, man, I've worked with these comedians. Yeah. Now I'm working with this guy. Like, there's things that to be a comedian, you have to be out of your mind. That's what I tell people. You have to believe that you belong on that stage, and that all these people are there to hear what you have to say.
First of all, you got to love doing it, right?
Right.
And also, I mean, everyone that I've worked with now is like, just everyone's so observant. You guys are always wondering, how can I turn this into a bit, right? And then one thing I say that all comedians need is to not have to worry about everything else. Like, you take care of as much as you can, so all you have to worry about is getting to the club, getting on stage.
But don't you think that from my experience, the very, very successful comedians are also control freaks? They want to drive. They want to, Timmy could drive. Mm-hmm. I drive.
Yeah.
I remember watching that documentary with Ray Romano. Ray's got to drive, right? And even though, yes, we should only focus on the dick jokes, we want to focus on everything.
Yeah, but I'm talking about things just as, making sure...
The little bullshit.
Yeah, you got your shit in your green room.
Right.
Making sure sound set up, making sure the lighting, just as much as possible, right, that you don't have to worry about.
Well, what I have learned...
Do you do sound check when you go on stage? And
I don't do sound check.
Yeah, you don't worry about none of that, right?
Timmy goes and does it, and, he handles it or whatever. But I did not know... I did not know what came with fame. And I'm not that famous. I am becoming more famous and recognizable.
Oh, what didn't you expect?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I love people, and I love to observe people. I love to be out. I love to be out having a drink, and I am no longer anonymous, right? Like, if I go somewhere, I feel the people staring at me.
Yeah, you almost have to be on your best behavior, right?
You have to be
if
on
you're
your
at
best
a bar,
behavior.
you can't go crazy.
Can't go nuts, and then it gets to the point where, like, let's say, for example, I don't know, 4 weeks ago, touring with Jimmy Schubert in, was it Orlando, right? My friend Fred Vela, he goes, hey, there's this great bar that I run, because he runs all these bars. He goes, come on. And I go, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. So we go, and then before you know it, one person comes over, oh my God, I'm a big fan, right?
Draws attention.
It draws
right
attention.
away.
Then other people go, well, who is that?
Who is that? Even if they don't know who you are, they want to take a picture.
Then they want to take a picture, or I see them at the bar, and they're like showing videos of me going, that's and for me, it is a very, very uncomfortable feeling for me.
And I've seen other comics where they make it work, but I was like, how does he do it? Like Bert Kreischer, I got to hang out with him one weekend, and he tells the audience, hey, after the show, I'm going to be at the bar next door. Whoever wants to come hang out.
So I used to do that too.
Shit show, man.
I used to do that too, but it has become a shit show, right? And don't get me wrong, I am the most. I prefer for you to come up and shake my hand. I prefer for you to ask for a picture than snickering in the corner,
or sneaking some.
Making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I missed the days when my opening act would go on stage at the comedy club, and I would sit at the back of the room and watch,
right, and
enjoy. And now, if I walk out that green room, then I just screwed up the opener set.
True.
Because then everybody goes, oh, and it just, I didn't know that was part of it. I have so much, and I'm not even that famous, so when I think about the Brad Pitts of the world, or even the type of fame that Justin Bieber has, or Selena Gomez, or Michael Jackson, where people, where you literally cannot go anywhere. And it's one thing to be famous, like, it's uncomfortable for me. And like Gabriel, I mean, I can put my hoodie on, go through the airport, baseball hat, and I'll get, I think that was Steve Trevino.
Yeah.
But Gabriel
I've been
is
on
400 pounds.
Yeah, I've traveled with him a few times now, and it's a whole nother level of attention that's like, and he handles it well. I mean, he'll never say no.
Right.
He could be tired as hell. We got morning flight, he's got his sunglasses on, just wants to get to the plane, and man, I admire people that can deal with that.
I mean, Brad Garrett, right? Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond. I don't know if you ever met him.
No, but I know your story and how your son's called Garrett, and
he's one of the sweetest guys in the world, but he's also 7 foot.
Right.
And he's on TV every single day, twice a day.
For how long?
Yeah, right? So he walks through the casino, and you're already looking at him because he's 7 foot, and then you go, oh my God, that's Brad Garrett. Yeah. And I remember Brad telling me, he's like, look, we chose this.
Yeah. He
goes, when you're in your home, you get to be private. But when you leave your house, we chose this. Be kind to these people. And I am always overwhelmingly gracious because I live a beautiful life because of the people that support me. But, when you start, I'm like, the scary part is that I am getting to that.
Wait until you start getting fan mail that you can't keep up with.
Which is happening. Yep.
And wait until people start finding your address.
Oh, it already happens here.
So,
I'm friends with the sheriffs here, and they'll come by with a friend. Hey, Steve, can you say hi to my friend? And I don't mind, right? Like, I'm like, whatever.
But it's a little, intrusive, right?
It's a little intrusive. And I'm always outside cutting the yard, and you will see people drive and then slow down.
Yeah.
And then they're just looking at me, So it is a little intrusive and a little scary. And I am getting to that point where the Bert Kreischers and Tom Segura's and Joe Coy and Gabriel, to where it's like, man, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
But you wouldn't trade it, right?
No, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Because I'll tell you why. Because And I think maybe Russell and Gabriel and Joe Coy are similar in that way. I think of it as such a blessing to be able to make people laugh. Because ultimately, I am a giver. Mm-hmm. I'm a giver. I'm an entertainer. You come to my house, everything's perfect. I want to entertain you. And when I entertain that audience, that's what makes me feel great. That they chose me as their entertainment that weekend. They got a babysitter, right? And then I get to be their entertainment for the weekend. So that part is special. And then when it gets real is when I get people say, you got us through cancer.
Right. Those are, I've always seen those type of stories, which is like, man, how can you not love that?
Love it.
When you've made an impact on someone like that.
So what are the differences working with Gabriel and Russell? Equally, I would say, famous.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Gabriel might be more famous than Russell.
A lot more. I mean, as far as in the U.S. and I can't really tell you right now because I'm still new and I've hung out with him just a month. But I mean, just him being recognized is way next level.
Right. But he flies private a lot.
Yeah, but we've been doing comedy club runs, so it feels like what I've dealt with before. And even if we fly private, I mean, I guess that's one of the cool perks too,
right? With
someone to that, and you're getting there too, right?
Keep it to yourself. But you know what? And yes, but it is a time machine, and it is about convenience, and for me especially. And, Gabriel does not have kids, but me especially, how do I make it all work?
For sure.
Right? I've cut down on my tour days already so that I can be home with my family. Because I am a family first. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to take the earliest flight home, right? You're not sleeping in anymore and catching an afternoon flight because you want to get home to your kids. I want to get home. And I
want to be the best dad I can be and the best husband I can be. And I absolutely love being a family man.
And I saw that with Russell before he had his kids, we would take afternoon flights.
Yeah, sleep in, party the night before.
Yep. Once he had his kids, let's fly home the next morning. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? You just try to, and you're at that point where you can choose your schedule, right? You don't have to work a full weekend now.
Which is great. Like this weekend I'm doing Friday in Phoenix, Saturday in San Jacinto, and then I get to come home.
Yeah.
Right? But I will say, and I might be setting myself up here, but we get spoiled.
Yeah. I see the way the clubs take care of you and they cater to you and want to make sure you're happy because they want you to come back. So it's nice, right? I mean, you get treated good in most of these places.
But it's hard not to lose perspective. Do you think that some of the other people, and I'm not going to say names, and you shouldn't say names either, because I love all comedians, so I don't ever want to talk bad about any comedian, but we can generally speak, and we don't know who you're talking about. Would you say that it sometimes gets to their head, or they almost live an unrealistic lifestyle?
Yeah, and I think sometimes some of these comics don't even know they're doing it. They might be bragging, but it's just what they live and experience. So when they're talking to you, you're like, what's up with this guy? So sometimes it's not done in a intentional way, but you can see it as like...
So that was a big moment for me at the Comedy Store. Dave Chappelle had come in. And you remember when Dave was coming back, right?
Yeah.
Dave would come around, and I remember I'm having a conversation with the door guys, and then Dave joins the conversation. And then I remember Dave said something where he goes, 50 grand a show.
Right, there you go.
He goes, fuck that. He's
That's like, too low.
Yeah.
That's too low.
He goes, I would never work for $50,000 a show. And I remember my jaw hitting the ground.
A perfect example, right?
But that was a moment for me because as soon as he walked off, every door guy, including myself, for like 50 grand this year would change my life. Literally changed my life. And I remember thinking, I want to be very aware not to be that guy.
Yeah.
But you're right. There are times
you're just having a conversation and it's your life. Right?
Another great story that helped me put that into perspective. My old opening act, Kyle Ray, who no longer does comedy because he had a kid, and he decided, okay, no more traveling for me, right? I remember he said that he was working as an extra on a movie called Master and Commander, which was the boat movie with Russell Crowe. And he said that all the extras are on a boat. There's a scene where they're getting attacked. And then the director goes, cut. He goes, guys, I want you guys ducking the whole time like you just got off of your helicopter. And Kyle was like, I remember all of us extras look, motherfucker, do you think we have helicopters? But again, but that also made me think about it and go, yeah, I have to be very careful not to be that guy. But I also find myself sometimes being that guy out of pride because I'm really proud of myself.
Of course. It's hard not to sometimes toot your own horn.
Yeah, I'm like, I get excited.
And most people that know you know that you put in the work.
I work my ass off.
And you hustled for a long time before you can actually be comfortable doing this.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure you struggled way more than now that you're not struggling as much.
Right. But no, I would say
for a long time, right?
Not only did I struggle for a long time, and I talk about this on the podcast, I struggled and I was funny. That's the hard part.
Yes, right?
That's the part that hits you in the heart where you go, how am I getting standing ovations in the OR?
Yeah.
And the guy that went before me completely ate shit but has a career. A real career.
And being in this for as long as I have now, I've seen that so many times. It's like, why isn't this guy bigger than what he is? Like,
and some people say luck. Some people, and I attribute it to I was never, and I think that's why me and you hit it off because we have a genuine friendship, and I don't have many genuine friendships in LA. I wasn't good at the ass kissing, right? I wasn't well, and to be honest with you, there was a comedian that I toured with that broke my heart and made me distrust comedians altogether. So I think twofold. One, I got burned by a comedian and I was like, I'm not going to let that happen again. I put that person in the whole group of, they're all like that.
And you know what? I realized that I couldn't be friends with a lot of these guys when I realized the ass kissers that they were.
Right.
And that made it hard for me to be cool with them just because I saw what they were doing.
It was always game. It was always game.
Yeah.
I remember.
Like, what can you do for me?
Right.
And they always came with an agenda and, they
knew that Russell took people on the road. And they thought, well, if I can get in with Eddie can put in a word, right?
So it made it hard for me to be able to. I'm not trying to judge anyone, but
look,
sometimes it's just.
I remember a comedian telling me one time, he came up to me and he goes, Trevino, you're one of the funniest dudes here. Mm-hmm. He goes, but you have to play the game.
Right.
And I go, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
I go, but I don't want to play the game.
But you must feel way better that you were able to do it your way, right? And
absolutely.
It was on your terms.
And I do believe in God. And I think that there's certain things that happen in my life that God did for me. One, I was going to be a Marine. Like I was going to join the service like my dad wanted me to. And I am an intense personality. I ended up breaking my back in high school. Mm-hmm. Boom. I can't join. And I always felt like God was saying, I have something better for you.
Right. I've always been lucky. I always felt like I've been blessed too. Right. Going to jail.
I have something for you, right?
Something better comes along.
Something better is going to come along for you. And I have bigger plans for you than you dying, kicking doors down in Iraq, right? So that happened. And then now, of course, I served through Helicopters for Heroes. And then this thing happened with that comedian where I was burned, and I would not have met my wife had I broke early. I would not have become the man I am today had I broke early because I was a fucking maniac. I was a maniac on the road, drinking as much as I could every single day.
Yeah.
It was a party. How many women can I hook up with? All I want to do is party. And me getting burned by this particular comedian completely stopped my career. Then I met Renae, and then now I am the man that I am today. So those two blessings,
Right? You weren't ready yet.
I don't think I was ready yet.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
it worked out. Right?
I think it definitely worked out. And so I do take a lot of pride in what I've done.
And I've enjoyed seeing those comics that you say, like, why isn't he more famous? But I've enjoyed seeing these comics where I'm like, he's gonna blow up eventually, and then you see it happen, and it makes me really happy for those that I'm fans of, those that are my friends.
Right now, the big one is Matt Rife.
Yes.
Is that how you say his last name?
Yep.
Rife?
Yep.
And
I saw that.
And I'm so frustrated because there's so many people that hate on him.
Oh,
and so many people were like,
but what does it matter? He's right.
Here's what's gonna happen. Either he is going to be extremely funny and talented, and he's going to deliver a great show, and his career is going to continue because he deserves it.
Right.
Or he's going to be a flash in the pan, and he's not going to put on a good show. And 3 years from now, we're gonna go, remember when Matt Rife blew the fuck up? Where is he now? So I always say it all comes out in the wash. I remember Bud Freeman saying, he goes, if you're good, you will make it.
Yeah.
If you're good. So if Matt's good, and I don't know if he is or not.
I think he is.
I met him a long time ago. I think he was 17 when I met him. Really nice guy. Super humble. Really nice guy. Kind of back then, he had this real skinny, goofy white kid thing about him. I met him in Ontario or one of the clubs. He came in with another comedian. And he had to stay in the green room because I remember he was underage. Very, very nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was, and usually when they're kids, they're punks.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a punk.
We've dealt with a few of them. Right.
He wasn't a punk.
Yeah, it's true.
He was really humble. He was really sweet.
Well-mannered.
When I met him, which was probably, I don't know how old he is now, but 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, well-mannered. So I don't know how funny he is. I do know that he, in my opinion, from the interaction that I had with him, that he was a really good kid.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so why hate on somebody
course.
when at the end of the day I have learned it's all going to work itself out.
Yeah, and I can name a few just off the top of my head that I've seen, and I'm like, he's gonna do well. Tom Segura, you, Jesus Trejo, Felipe. You know, I was hanging out with Felipe before he blew up the way he has now. There's a few, man. Gerard Carmichael, I got to. He hit the road with us a bunch of times.
I remember. You know, Felipe was ahead of me, and I remember like he would come through Corpus or whatever, and I would sit there and go, God, this guy's really funny, man. Like really funny. And then, you know, he got that break with Last Comic Standing.
Yep, I was there at the finale.
You know, but there are those guys that you go, man, this guy's really funny. I remember Tom Segura and I literally standing outside the Improv like we were lepers. Like we had a disease.
Yeah.
Like nobody's talking to us. Me and him are chubby kids outside. And I remember literally Tom Segura going, Trevino, when's it going to be our turn?
Right. Felipe is another good example of he wasn't ready either.
Yeah, he was a mess, right? So, but you know, and then he met his girl, and I think she keeps him in check pretty well.
Has been helpful for him.
But it is a difficult business, and you know, I like to say that one of the things that I have capitalized on is having a can-do, do-it-myself attitude.
Dope.
Right? I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
You know, and again, Gabriel was one of those guys. I remember meeting Gabriel very, very early in my career. He was the kid at that time, because he's not much older than me, but he got a lot of success very, very early.
Yeah.
But when I met him, he was the guy from Brothers Garcia.
Damn, that sounds familiar.
He did a TV show on Nickelodeon called Brothers Garcia.
They're writers, right? Or
I forget what it was. Show? It was a Jeff Valdez show. And I remember meeting Gabe and going, "Oh man, that's Gabriel Iglesias." You know, and at that time, Que Locos was huge,
right?
And he was on Que Locos like every other episode.
Were you on Que Locos?
Never made it to Que Locos.
Really?
Before my time.
Wow.
Yeah. Before my time, But I think at the end of the day, because I used to be that hater. Mm-hmm. I used to be a hater, right? Last Comic Standing would come out, and then I'm headlining improvs, and then all of a sudden, Last Comic Standing would come out, and those guys would automatically start getting weeks at the improv, and I'd be like, fuck, that guy's not funny, and fuck him, and blah, blah. But they're gone.
It's just like a sport. It's competitive. It's competitive.
It's competitive. But now I'm at the point where I'm very secure in my life and who I am.
Comes with age, too, right?
Comes with age. And I just cheer everybody on.
Yeah.
I remember being at the Addison Improv, and these open mic kids, I was headlining, and I showed up the Wednesday before where they had the open mic, so that I wanted to do some time before my week started. I'm listening to these open mic kids, and all of them were shitting on Larry the Cable Guy. And they were like, oh my God, and what are these jokes? And I remember going, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
You have no idea how hard this career is.
And it's not just when fans critique and talk shit, but when comics are doing it. How do you think the Latino community of comics has improved as far as, No, right?
And it makes me sad.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's this machismo bullshit. I don't know if it's a fear of there's only room for one. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is very, very sad.
Yeah.
And when I see photographs of Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle,
right,
Kevin Hart on stage together, joking around, respect. They all call each other the greatest. Dave's calling Chris Rock the greatest, and Chris Rock's calling Kevin Hart the greatest, and Kevin Hart's calling them both the greatest, and they all just help and love each other. And it makes me sad for my community because that's never happened.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It's never happened.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, they let each other on stage.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest nights I ever saw, and I think I told this story. I'm at the Laugh Factory, and on stage is Chris Tucker. They send Chris Tucker a little note like they do. Chris Tucker goes, oh my God, guys, Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle goes up. Crowd goes crazy. They hand Dave Chappelle a note, and Dave Chappelle goes, holy shit, Chris Rock. Chris Rock goes on stage. Then Chris Rock goes, ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Murphy. And he points to the top of the balcony there at the Laugh Factory, and people fainted. For real fucking, he looked up, Eddie, right? Eddie likes that. Yeah, anytime, he loves being Eddie Murphy. And I remember being in the back and those little bleacher seats.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was looking at fucking Eddie Murphy, right? I didn't even know he was there. And he leans over the thing and he goes like this to the crowd, and people just faint. But I'm thinking like, man.
That's a good night, man.
It was an amazing night. But as Latinos, I've never seen anything remotely like that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I have been booked with certain comedians to do a show, like at a casino, and then they take me off the show because they're like, oh, that comedian doesn't want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's one thing to not like me for whatever reason. I would never, ever take money out of somebody's pocket.
Yeah, I think you that was one of your guesses, was maybe they feel like there's not enough room for everyone. I can see that being a reason,
Well, because it is scary, because there is usually one at a time,
right?
And when George gets to the top of the hill, which we talked about on his podcast, he then goes, well, fuck you guys. I figured it out, you figure it out, right? Which is why it was so heartbreaking for me, because here I was trying to bring up another comedian and try to be positive and try to unite the community, is what I have always tried to do. And then that young guy that I shouted out then turns around and calls me lame for doing it. And it's like, guy, why does this cycle continue?
And then as far as like breaking into movies, I mean, who else other than George been able to break into the acting?
Paul a little bit,
right?
I always tell the story about Gabriel Iglesias is a perfect example. Here, Gabriel Iglesias is selling out arenas, not theaters, arenas, 5 to 7 years before Kevin Hart ever even did it.
Yeah.
Yet Kevin Hart does it for 2 years and becomes the biggest star in movies. Mm-hmm. Gabriel is the fat DJ in Magic Mike. How does this guy, what's wrong with the system that here's this guy, Gabriel, who obviously has fans, who obviously is a very charming, nice guy. He's selling out arenas, yet he doesn't get nowhere near the career that Kevin Hart got.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So you sit there and you go, what the fuck do I got to do?
Yeah. And you want to get into acting, right?
I would love to act. I would love to do movies. I'd love to do TV. However, I am getting to the point where, I make enough money here at home and I love being at home.
Right.
That in order for them to get me to leave home
right.
to do a TV show, they'd have to be a nice offer. And
not just money wise, you want, maybe it's a big part, right? Or it's a good script where you're passionate about it, or I mean, it's not just you don't mean just by
because people don't realize using Gabriel again. Gabriel takes a pay cut to go do a TV show
for sure.
Like literally gets paid less to go be on Netflix, but he did get 10 episodes, so it would have to be something like that, right? Like I'm not leaving my house to go do your pilot to hopefully get a show to make less money than I make here at home when I could be with my family.
I mean, it's a tough situation. You're gonna have to pick the right project that you think will help you advance in that field.
That's why I think maybe movies, right? Because then because I'll be honest with you, man. I have been doing stand-up and touring for 20 years.
Yeah.
Every single weekend. And I would like to have a break. And to be able to take a break but still feed my family.
Right.
And still push my career forward to go do a movie, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Because then I sell more tickets when I leave that movie. It continues my career. But like COVID, the hunger and excitement I got to go back.
Yeah.
Right? Because at that point, before COVID, I was like, oh my God, man, another weekend on the road. And, and I'll be honest with you, I was becoming pretty jaded with, I got to get on a plane again, right?
You're not at that point yet? You're
not right now.
No?
Not because, I do want to film this material so that I can get excited to write new material.
Got it.
So right now that we're doing all these secondary markets, I'm doing markets I never did before. So I get super excited to check this set out. But let's take, other markets that I have toured every year. For the past 2 years, they've seen this material.
Right.
So next time I come, I don't want to give them the same material. So, but when I go to these new markets, like last week, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I'm like, ooh, you guys have never seen me. You haven't seen me in a long time. You've just seen what you've seen on TikTok, YouTube, TV. Boom. Here, check this out. And I blow their minds with this material.
Yeah, it must be great when you go into a new market and let's say you do a small comedy club and then you hit it again and you're able to add nights and you hit it again and you see that growth. That must be fulfilling as shit. Yeah.
So Gabriel and Russell are very similar to me where they write on the road. Gabriel's writing right now. Does he scrap everything and then start over?
I think so. I mean, I know that's what Russell did after.
I remember Russell would do that.
Yeah, after a special is aired, that's it. He hits the road and just does comedy clubs, gets on stage as much as he can and just molds an hour together, which is my favorite time.
Then he goes on tour.
Yes.
The big tour.
Yeah. But seeing a comic mold the new set together, especially someone that doesn't write and is just on stage trying to figure it out, that's impressive, man. And that's why I was like, I would never be able to do something like that.
And for me, it's like, it is scary and exciting.
Do you write or just
No, on
bullet
stage.
points on your
Memory.
phone?
Nothing.
Not even bullet points on
Nope.
your phone? Ideas? If you come up with an idea,
Nothing.
it's all in your head.
It's all in my head. I write constantly. So, Renae laughs because she's like, she'll wake up from being asleep at 4 a.m. and I'm still up. And she'll be like, what are you doing? And I'm just laying there. And I'm like, oh, I'm writing this joke. And I've got this idea for a joke. And
Just piecing it together.
I'm piecing it together in my head. I'm trying to figure out, I've got this idea right now to do one day all the way through from morning to evening being a husband to Renae and a father to Garrett and Delilah. And making that one day a 20-minute bit of hilarity. Right?
Like a recap.
Like a recap.
Recap and just making it a bit.
Like going to you who don't have kids and
Right.
go, let me tell you what my life can be, what one
There
day
you
in
go.
my life can be,
Yeah.
right? From jujitsu
idea.
practice to, to the, and then finding those heartwarming moments. That's what I love about this set
To
right
make
now.
that boring shit funny, man.
Right, right, exactly. Exactly. And I do, right? I do,
Right, of course.
But like right now, this special that we're about to film, to me is one of the most beautiful specials I've written.
I mean, I got to see it and I can't wait.
because it has heart and there's
can't wait.
so not only explaining here's the chaos of having kids, but here's also these really beautiful moments. One of my favorite moments of the day is when I walk into my daughter's room and she's just waking up. And she looks at me and she says, hey, Daddy. And I go, come here, baby girl. And she's rubbing her, she's rubbing the gunk out of her eyes. And she's just it is the most beautiful thing on planet Earth for me right now. I look forward to it. It literally takes my heart out of my chest. When my daughter wakes up in the morning and her hair's all messed up and her little eyes and she's wearing the cutest pajamas and she has her little mona, she calls it mona. She has her little mona and she's coming out and she goes, Daddy, hold me. And I pick her up and squeeze her. That is the most beautiful moment of the day. But then 2 minutes later, she's shitting on a wall. you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, fuck, here we go, right? So yes, I'm excited about it. You were saying that, why is that your favorite? Is it because of the comedy clubs or is it because you love the process so much?
Yeah, I just love seeing the process of someone putting it together. And then that makes me curious, when is your favorite time of day? Like, is it middle of the night when you piece your sets together? Or is it after an experience happens where you're like, oh, I can make this funny. Let me start thinking of how I can.
A little bit of both,
Yeah.
right? So I will be inspired by a moment, and then I put that in my head as, oh man, that's a great moment. That's a great story. What's funny about that? Then I leave it there, go about my day, and then at night when I'm winding down, I'm like, okay, how does that fit? Right? So this story that I'm going to tell and this joke that I'm trying to write, this 20-minute bit, of course it's going to be months of days all put into one. Right? So then I have to go, okay, what are all the funny moments that happens in a day with us? How can I put them all in one? Right? So then I go, oh man, that was funny.
Yeah.
That's how this morning started. I think that's going to be the morning that starts. So you're a lot like
Right.
Rick, right? Rick, our producer Rick, because he's a comedy nerd, he absolutely loves coming to see me and then coming to see me 6 months later and going, holy shit.
Right.
I remember that bit when it was like this. What would you say that's one of your favorite moments, Rick?
Oh, absolutely. And I also like to see the progression, like coming almost in the middle and then seeing it at the very end. We talked about that with the special, when I saw it like a year before when you're doing the stuff, doing the bits, and then seeing it actually recorded. That's my favorite part of it, seeing the progression of the joke.
But I also think that there's two different schools of comedy now. There's the school of comedy that people go, I'll never write a perfect set. Right? I go up there, I do my thing, I ad-lib a little bit. I'll never put together a perfect set. I'm the opposite. I want to deliver a perfectly written set.
So I'm sure you cut a lot of fat off once you're progressing with the joke and try to
tighten it
exactly.
to where every word that comes out of my mouth matters.
Yeah.
But I also think that because of that, that's why my stuff does so well on TikTok. That's why my stuff does so well, because there are no wasted words.
Now I'm curious. Now, with age, have you noticed a fall off with the way your brain works? Because I feel I'm at 42 years old and I'm fucking losing my memory. Like I feel like I forget a lot of things now. No,
I don't get tired. I don't get sore. I don't. Very rarely. I cut that tree. The stump that I'm burning. That tree kicked my ass.
Okay.
I cut the whole thing down and it fucking beat my ass. But man, I don't. People say, man, when you get older, you're gonna feel it. I don't.
And I'm just talking about mentally.
But mentally, I don't. I feel sharp. I feel
that's awesome.
Energetic.
And that's why I feel like it's a special trait, man, for these comics that have the longevity. I mean, especially guys like you that don't write. I mean, you gotta have you have something special up there.
It's all up there. Well, but I contribute that. There's two other things that happen in my life that have contributed to my success. Dyslexia.
Really?
Because being dyslexic, I was always embarrassed to write. It embarrassed me because my writing and my spelling is garbage. So several times, and Chappelle actually talks about with his notebook and somebody making fun of him, and then he was like, fuck this notebook. Like, I'm done with this notebook, right? And for me, I remember several times where I would have like a notepad and I'm writing stuff down and people would be like, who wrote this? A 3-year-old? Because my handwriting is so bad.
I didn't even know you were dyslexic until you came on as a client in the office, and we got your some personal information just to keep on file, and it said that. I was like, is this a joke?
Yeah, but because of that, it just like. And before people attack me, I'm just using this as an example. Of course, dyslexia. I'd rather have dyslexia than being blind. However, when you're blind, all your senses get heightened. Right. So being dyslexic, I think that it heightened my memory and the way that I work and the way that I handle things.
Makes sense.
Is because of my dyslexia and my fear of writing, spelling. Right. So that happened. The other blessing is that being told I was dumb.
Wow.
Being told I was dumb has been a huge blessing because people told me I was dumb when I was young, and it makes me now go, I don't know that. So I'm going to ask for help, right? People that have been told their whole lives, you're great, you're smart, you're amazing, all your ideas are great. They then take on the world, well, I'm the best and I know what I'm talking about and everybody should listen to me. And I'm the opposite where I go, no, Eddie, you tell me. No, Joe, my new manager, you tell me what I should be doing. Because this is what you're an expert at, right? When it came to real estate, I wanted to get into real estate. I call my buddy Dan, and I'm asking a million questions. Instead of having the attitude of, oh, I already know how to do this because I'm fucking great.
Yeah.
So those are two blessings that have led to my success as a stand-up.
And not just blessings. I mean, those are some two big obstacles to overcome. Like,
that's what I tell. That's why, I love teachers because, I had teachers that could have destroyed me.
Yeah, right.
I had teachers that would ignore me. They would put me in the hallway immediately. That would call me dumb. Straight up call me dumb. I had teachers that would tell me that I was going to end up in prison. But the other teachers who loved me, who enjoyed my sense of humor, who knew I was a good person and encouraged me as a person, I will never forget.
True, because I mean, those memories never go away. I know the teachers that I enjoyed, I still remember
every time. Right? Kelly Kimball at Gregory Portland ISD, I love that woman because she was the one that would sit me down and go, "You're so talented, and you're so funny, Steve, and you got to be doing something with this, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and we love you." And then I would get in trouble because she was the tech teacher at technical theater. I'd get in trouble, and she would tell the teacher, "Send him to me." You got an issue with Steve? Send him to me.
Yeah.
So then I'd go and then we'd chat and we'd talk and she was just amazing to me. And then coincidentally, because Renae and I went to the same high school, there's a guy who Renae was his favorite. And that guy single-handedly tried to destroy me.
Really?
Same guy.
Oh,
The guy that absolutely loved Renae.
What was his name?
That was Mr. Yao. I don't give a fuck anymore. That was Mr. Yao. Mr. Yao straight up went to my counselor, Miss Daring, told Miss Daring, I don't want Steve in radio, television. I don't want him in student council. I want him out because I went for student council and got in. And then he was in charge of student council.
Why did you guys have so much conflict?
I don't know.
Wow.
But he wanted to be an actor.
He just didn't like you.
He just didn't like me. And I had to go sit down with Miss Daring and I said, look, radio, television is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is my future. I want to be in radio, television.
But yeah, that push you get from, certain people or teachers is all you need sometimes, right?
It means the world. And thank God I had those teachers like Miss Kimball, like Miss Quick, like Miss Hale, all these teachers that saw the good in me and saw my sense of humor. And I remember, Miss Wiggins and Miss Cunningham, they would come up to me and they go, Steve, your vocabulary's through the roof. Steve, you're very intelligent. Steve, you're smart. But I had trouble taking whatever was in here and putting it on paper. Right? So...
interesting, dude.
Yeah.
And your kids aren't dyslexic?
Dude, well, but I also...
Is it genetic?
Well, I don't know. But, dude, I am so blessed with the most amazing kids. And because Renae, A personality, valid Victorian. You give Renae an assignment, she's going to bring it back to you perfect.
Nice.
Right? However, her street smarts, her business savvy. I'm high IQ business, high IQ common sense.
You guys compliment each other.
So I told her, I go, thank God our kids got the best of both of us instead of the worst of both of us.
And you'd point it out too.
Any questions, Rick?
No, you guys covered a lot.
Yeah, no, we've been friends for 20 years?
Yeah.
Well, since 06.
06 was it? And even before we were friends, I got to see you on stage a bunch of times. And I never thought.
Man, but that's what would drive me crazy, man. Like, I tell people all the time, and I think, and I don't want to name any names, but one of our mutual friends is going through what I was going through 10 years ago where you're good.
Yeah.
You walk on stage, you fucking murder, but nothing's happening.
And you're in the right place doing it, right?
Right. I'm at the Comedy Store.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding you. I was one of the only ones that would get a standing ovation in the OR. I remember getting a standing ovation in the OR and Kevin Hart coming to me going, "You're the funniest motherfucker on the planet." Chris Spencer, right? Is that right? Chris
Spencer.
Chris Spencer would come up to me all the time and he's like, dude, you are a monster.
Yeah.
A monster.
Even compliments from Latino comics is rare, right?
I don't get any. I don't get any from Latino comics. I compliment all of them. And I always say that we need a George Lopez and George Lopez's humor. We need a Felipe Esparza and his humor. Are their humor my humor? Not necessarily anymore, but they're funny and we need that. Gabriel Iglesias, probably one of the most talented people I've ever seen on stage. I always tell people that Gabriel is not fall out of your chair funny, but he's funny and he's probably the most entertaining people to watch. When he talks and the voices and the charisma and the things that he says and the way he says it, I don't think anybody is that good.
We were talking about a different kind of comedy too, where laughter's great, but silence sometimes is amazing,
powerful.
Right? When you got everybody listening to every single word you say.
And Gabriel's one of those, right?
Yeah.
Gabriel's one of those guys that you go to his show and you go, man, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Russell, not fall out of your seat funny. However, Russell, for me, culturally, I would learn so much.
For sure. Yeah, it's a learning experience,
It
too.
is a learning experience about human beings, about
Yeah.
people, about accents, about different cultures. And you leave Russell's show going, holy crap, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I didn't know that they did that in India. I didn't know that the Chinese were like that. I didn't know. And then but again, super enjoyable, right?
And that's
super
why I say,
charismatic.
that's why I say there's room for everyone, right?
Room for everybody, man.
There's something for someone.
And that's why we have to protect our freedom of speech. It drives me crazy that comedians have become woke, because I'm like, guys, we can't be woke. We're not.
but-
Our art form
Yeah.
cannot be woke.
But it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think I remember a time where so many comedians are as big as they are at one time. Like, I mean, I can count how many comics can do an arena right now. It wasn't like that 10 years
no
ago,
way.
15 years
I
ago.
mean, Joe Coy, Gabriel Iglesias,
there's so many.
Kevin Hart, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura,
Chappelle. I mean, there's so many.
Because my friend Chavo from System of a Down. Did you ever meet Chavo?
No, you told me about it.
Yeah, Chavo. I remember being at the Comedy Store, and he goes, you guys are the last punk rock. He goes, stand-up comedy is the end of, you guys are punk rock. And there is no more punk rock but stand-up comedians. He goes, you guys are punk.
I almost feel like the hour special is going to go away soon just because
I can already
of
tell
the
you it's
attention
going
span, right?
Attention span, I can't tell you how many people come to my show. They go, you're my favorite comedian. And I go, oh my God, what special did you watch? And they're like, oh, we just watch you at night
exactly,
on
right?
TikTok.
Just clips.
Yeah, we just watch clips.
That's so crazy, man.
So I was even telling Rick, I go, man, why don't we just film a special specifically for clips?
For clips, right?
Yeah. And then I had another idea where I go, why don't I do Vegas? Because Vegas is where the whole world comes.
Right.
Why don't I do Vegas? Tell everybody to pull their cell phone out and go live.
Damn, that's a good idea too.
And now, because by the way, I'm playing the MGM Grand in December at the David Copperfield Theater.
That is a really good idea.
Dude, I said it here first before somebody does it and claims it. No, but I had this idea to go, hey, we're all going to film my special.
Yeah, instead of nobody record me because I don't want this leaked.
Everybody.
Let's leak it.
Everybody, let's go live. Let's go live and tag your friends that you want them to see my special.
Right.
And now I've got, I forget what it is, 1,000 people in the MGM Grand going live.
And I have not heard of an idea like that.
1,000 people going live?
I think it's a good idea.
How many people does that touch?
Right.
How many?
Then you get tagged, so if you're going live.
Yeah, you tell them what to tag.
Yeah.
Tag Steve Trevino, tag husband, tag this, that, and the other, and tell your friends that you're going live.
Yeah.
Right? Because we already all know I'm going live. Tell all your friends, get ready. You're going to watch Steve Trevino from Vegas.
Great idea.
So nobody better take it.
Rick might want to cut that part.
No. It's better that we say it and leave it on.
Yeah, so we have the date, right?
We have the date stamped when we did it. I'm so glad you came. And so those of you that don't know, Episdoe works for my management company. They also manage Joe Coy. They also manage Gabriel Iglesias. Gabriel is actually performing in Austin this week. So Episdoe, because we've been friends forever, said, hey, man, I'd love to see New Braunfels. I'd love to hang out with you. So he came.
Not to be on this
That's what I was going to say.
podcast.
Not to be on the podcast. But again, things happen for a reason, man.
And I get to see the place, and we've been talking about me visiting for a while, so I'm glad we're able to make it happen.
And Renee's family situation, again, it was a blessing because last time that Renae had to run off and take care of her family, we had Maz Jobrani booked. So me and Maz, he came in via Skype, or Zoom or whatever we do now, and we had Maz. And then Renae yesterday, on an emergency, had to leave to...
so when you guys had Maz last week, was Renae on?
Renae was not on.
Okay.
But like I said, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, I have somebody else to bounce off of.
Right.
And then this week, have
you ever done it by yourself?
I've never done it by myself.
No? Have you had your dad on?
Dad's not much of a talker.
You did do it one time by yourself.
Did I do it one time? Oh, I did do it one time by myself. But, to me, this podcast is more about lifestyle. It is more about what Renae and I go through as a family. We decided we don't hide anything. We bring our arguments here. We talk for real.
Yeah. I'm sure it's a form of counseling for a lot of...
It's a form of counseling for me.
All right.
And Renae. But people come up to us and they go, man, we learned so much about ourselves by watching you guys, right? So absolutely amazing. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
What do we got going on? We got Hawaii coming up. We got this weekend sold out. The week after that, I believe, is Cincinnati, Ohio. And then we have Brea. We added shows in Brea. And then I'm taking a week off. And then Hawaii. Then I'm taking 2 weeks off. And then we come back strong in Virginia Beach.
Nice.
So looking forward to seeing you guys. As always, Aztec Chevrolet. Man, those guys are amazing. As a matter of fact, one of my good friends is now ordering a Denali from them right now, and they took care of it absolutely immediately. I will also tell you a little secret. If you're looking for a GMC Denali Yukon or Yukon XL AT4, Aztec Chevrolet has several coming in right now that are not spoken for, and they're hard to get. Also, Old Salt Coffee, veteran-owned and operated coffee company. Why are you going to the store to buy coffee when it can be delivered to your home? Trevino 10. My friends at Cherries, God bless them. I love them. Download that app because that app could change mine and my wife's life. And then you'll never see me on the road ever again. Anyway, we love you guys so much. Thank you, Edro. We'll see you next time.